Hi, everyone. Welcome to Career Pathways in Microbiology. My name is Shilpa Gadwal. I'm the program officer in the education department. We're very excited to have you join us today. The purpose of today's webinar is to bring you awareness of different career pathways in microbiology in hopes that you find a career that interests you. Before we begin, we want to go through a few housekeeping items. We are recording the presentations and plan on sending it to you via email after the webinar is done. At any time, if you have any questions, please enter them in the Q&A box below in the Zoom toolbar, and the moderator will get to them after the presentations. Today, we have three speakers who work in industry and biotechnology. The moderator for today's session is Katriana Popacek. Katriana, you can get started.
Excellent. Thank you, Shilpa. My name is Katriana Popacek. I'm an assistant professor at Colorado State University, and I'm lucky enough to be able to teach microbiology, immunology, as well as do education and bench science. And so I'm especially excited to learn today about careers in biotechnology, since it's not necessarily my forte. But I don't want to take up too much time other than to introduce our first speaker, Lauren Saunders.
Okay, thank you for the introduction. Let me share my presentation. Come on. Okay. All right. So my name is Lauren Saunders, and I'm a field applications manager at Ceres Nanosciences. And so I thought I'd start just a little bit about me. I'm married. There's my husband, John, and me hiking over here. We have a cat and a dog, Faraday and Callisto. Um, I have a bunch of different hobbies. We do a lot of hiking. I ride horses. I like reading and puzzles and trying new things. Here's a picture of my husband and me and my sister and brother-in-law kayaking in a cave last year. So, like trying random fun things that I haven't done before. Um, I am a bit of an introvert. People think of field application scientists having to be extroverts, but I would say that's not true. Um, and my dad is also a biochemist. He's retired now, but I'm actually a fourth generation PhD chemist biochemist. So I should have known what I was getting into, but um, didn't necessarily ask all the right questions. um, so here is just an example of my career journey. And you can look at it a couple different ways. You can sort of look across and say, she went to undergrad and then straight to grad school, did a postdoc, and then moved to industry. Like that sounds pretty normal. But I jumped around a lot in terms of what types of science I was doing. And so I started out doing like ecology. I did some plant community work. I studied chemicals that attract butterflies to come lay their eggs on plants. And then I also was doing some microbiology. I did some work on bacteria that live in deep subsurface waters. I went to gold mines and did sampling. I did some work on dairy farms, looking at bacteria on organic dairy farms and how they hang around after the cows have been sick. And then for grad school, I sort of jumped in a different direction. I did protein kinetics. I went into a biochemistry program at Yale. And so having experienced sort of the edges of that, doing chemistry, doing ecology, sort of figured out what part of the process I was most interested in. Um, and so that's kind of how I ended up in biochemistry. But then I jumped around again as I moved to my postdoc. I still did some biochemistry, but I also did some genetics. I did some natural product discovery. And then once you move to industry, they give you your projects. So I've been doing a lot of sample prep type work in my two different jobs in industry. I did some extraction kit design, and I'm currently working at a company that does concentration of different things. So you can look at that and say, oh, there's no pattern there. She just did whatever. And that's honestly kind of true. When I found something that was interesting, I'd just be like, oh, like this sounds fun. Like, let's go do it. Like, go see what this is about. And honestly, that's worked pretty well for me. I did not have like a 10-year plan or a 15-year plan. I just kind of said, well, I think, the science is good. I think I'll go into grad school and kind of keep trying different kinds of fun science. And I think that's something that makes me a good fit for an industry position, because industry jobs, the projects end. They say this is working. now it's a product, you're done, move on to something else. Or they say this isn't working, you're done, like go work on project B that is working, and maybe we will be able to turn it into a product. And so I think, I think industry jobs in general can be a really good place to go if you like science in general, and you're not like, I only like BRCA2 genetics and DNA repair systems. Like, if that's all you really want to do, then academia tends to be a better fit. And another thing about industry is they often, there's sort of two kinds of industry roles in my mind. Some of them are like, if you didn't work in a lab that does exactly what we do, we're not interested. And some of them say, no academic labs do what we do. Like, we will just take anyone who looks like they have a solid scientific background. And so um, I would say a lot of uh, I would say a lot more clinical companies fall into the first group because there's a lot more clinical research that's done in academia, but a lot of the um, household product research, like my dad designed enzymes to go into Tide laundry solution, for example. There are not a lot of people who do that in academia. People who do sort of the molecular biology that comes in kits, which is essentially what I do now, you're just buying a kit in academia. So they're just interested in, can you do science in general? And so it doesn't make a huge difference what all of the stuff that came before was, as long as you can think and reason and do good science. So I thought for this session in particular, we'd focus a little bit on the jump to industry, because that is a very hard place to be. I remember looking around and being like, man, I don't know what any of these job titles are. Is this something that is a right fit for me? Is this not? And um, so I applied to just a lot of things. And really, what I should have done is talk to people in industry about like, what exactly do these jobs mean? And um, I was doing some networking and talking to people, but it was all about like, well, what's your company do? And not about what is a process development scientist, and is that a researcher? Is that not a researcher? What should I do? So I've put some examples of things that I applied to back in the day here, and some things that looked like from the title, looked like you could have applied to, like this McKinsey and this Amazon job. Those are not biologists. But field application scientists, which is where I ended up, are on here. Process development scientists, and I did interview for some roles that did similar things. Um, they do tend to be PhD scientists who do some of those roles. Obviously, R&D scientists. I looked at a lot of those jobs, but I also looked at um, other things that are a little more related to field application science. Medical science liaison is kind of the clinical version of my job. They're an expert in a particular disease, and they go explain to the doctors, details about that disease and why they should buy the drug that the company is selling. And so there were a lot of those positions, a lot of medical writing positions, which I looked at a little bit as well. And they're not doing the science, but they're sort of pulling it all together for whatever sort of publication the company is going for. So I ended up in field applications. I worked at Beckman Coulter first, and I did field applications there. I jumped around a little bit there. I was in marketing, doing marketing applications. I was in R&D briefly, but most of my time has been in field applications. And I'm currently at Ceres Nanosciences, which is a small startup. There are about 35 of us. We're based in Virginia. And we make products to capture and concentrate low abundance analytes. So we have magnetic particles that can bind viruses and bacteria for concentration. We have them that bind small sized DNA for concentration. We have them that bind proteins for mass spec analysis. So wide variety of different biological applications that we're supposed to know something about. And so I have here just some details on what I do during my day. I am currently a manager. but I still do some of the day-to-day field application scientist work, and then I do the management work in addition because there are only three of us, and so it's a very small team, as we're a small company. So a lot of what we do is meeting with customers to explain technical things. Um, you work with viruses and bacteria, pick a non-random example. It's in some sort of liquid solution. You want to know, can we use your products to concentrate? Is this going to work? Possibly no one's ever done it before. Possibly it's something we do all the time. And so then I would tell them, yeah, we haven't done it, but we've done this other thing that's similar. I think if we try this, it would work. I give people example protocols. When things aren't working, I help them troubleshoot, say, oh, you added way too much of this, you didn't add enough of that. I think you need to change this buffer because I don't think that buffer will work with this step. Um, so it's very similar to the work you do in the lab when your experiments aren't working. It's just that I'm not doing the experiments in the lab. One of the other things about industry is that you have a much smaller piece of the pie than you do in academia. And so I'm in this very small sample prep area, but I do it across a lot of different types of projects. So I have a lot of phone calls. I sometimes go to visit the customers in person to have these discussions. People send me downstream results. They send me sequencing results. They send me PCR results and say, like, this looks bad. Help me figure out why. And so I do a lot of that. I also go to different customer labs and show them how the products work. So you say, I would like to start looking for monkeypox in wastewater. Can you come show me how to do that? And so I would fly to wherever that person is. My next trip will be to Chicago. I have someone on my team who's in Bangladesh right now. It can be kind of anywhere in the world. They're mostly in the US for us. But, you go, you set everything up in their lab, you explain how it works, you show them the process. And then I also do a lot of writing and editing posters. We still do a little bit of lab work. And so some of that is our own lab work. Some of that is bits of things from collaborators, plus things that we've done in-house. And I'll synthesize a lot of that. So I'll write it into a poster, I'll write it into an application note. Rarely I'll do an actual peer-reviewed publication. But the field applications team since we're part of the commercial team, we're kind of the technical experts for commercial. And so anytime the commercial team needs to do something technical, they usually come ask me and say, hey, is this right? Am I saying this right? Like, how should I explain this? What would people be interested in talking to here? So there's a lot of sort of technical communication from that angle as well. I do a lot of emails, lots of emails just to check in. Hey, we're trying our protocol. Like, how's it going? I have a list that like pings me to remind me to email all these people on different timelines, depending on what they're doing. It's very much like networking. So if you ever want a job that makes you network as part of the job, this will do it. And so I check in, I see what they're working on, see if anything we're working on is useful. And I do a lot of travel. I travel about half the time to go to customer sites, to go to conferences, to figure out what's going on in different labs. Hey, these people aren't responding to emails. I may need to go in person and figure out what's happening. As I've become a manager, I also have lots of meetings with my team, help making sure that projects are moving forward, make sure they don't have too many things going on, help solve any issues that they have. Especially with travel, sometimes you have to juggle priorities around and say, okay, you were going to analyze this data for a poster, but something came up and you have to go to Nebraska next week. I can, send that data to me and I will do this. And so we juggle things a lot like that. I do some market intelligence. As I'm out at customer sites and at conferences, I figure out what other things are going on in the field that could be useful for us. And then I also track, the metrics for my team to make sure that we're doing a good job. And so I feel like this is a good fit for me. I do talk to a lot of people, and as an introvert, I didn't expect I would like it, but I actually really do. Like they're fun interactions, and I talk to a lot of interesting people. And then because I like doing so many different types of science, like I get to go see people who are doing all sorts of different cool things and help them come up with ideas and think of things to do. And so that's been really fun and rewarding as well. I'm going to stop there because I think I did run over my time a little bit. Sorry, guys. Um, but if you have any questions, put them in the Q&A and I am happy to answer them.
Thank you so much, Lauren. We're gonna move on to Naimisha Avaram. Oh man, I was practicing that and I messed it up. I'm so sorry, Naimisha.
No worries.
Darn it. I was like the whole time, like in the back of my mind, but I'm excited to hear you speak. So go ahead and get started whenever you're ready.
Just share my screen. Can you all see the screen now?
Yep.
Perfect. So, hey everyone, my name is Nanisha. I work for Diacerin Group. We are an Italian company. We originally were Luminex, and we got acquired a few years ago by Diacerin, and we are into clinical diagnostics, meaning we develop products that can help find out what infections a patient has. Let's say in a hospital, a patient walks in with a bloodstream infection. We develop a product that can identify what kind of pathogen it is. Is it a bacteria? Is it a virus? Is it a parasite? You name it, depends on what kind of projects you're working on. So this is just a basic intro. I did my PhD from UT Dallas. I finished in 2019. My focus in PhD program was in micromolecular biology, I should say. I was working on understanding iron uptake mechanisms in soil bacteria. I graduated in 2019 December, and I made up my mind probably a year or two before I graduated, or before I intend to graduate, that I am interested in looking for industrial positions. So I was preparing myself and honing my skills towards, a career transition into industry. So in June 2020, I had an offer from Luminex as a scientist one in R&D. We do asset development. I worked in this team for close to 3 years, where we were developing different kinds of products, IVDs. We call them as in vitro diagnostic devices. We are tied up to hospitals, meaning our products are not for public use, but it's for direct hospital use. And let's say a patient comes in with an infection, they draw a blood sample or a swab or a stool sample. They run it on our platform of product that we develop. They know what kind of infection it is, and from there on, it just makes the path for choosing what kind of medications to give, what kind of treatment strategies to give, much easier. And I think the biggest rewarding experience, or the satisfaction that I get out being in this company or being in this field of science, is that I'm still doing science. At the same time, I am helping improve healthcare outcomes. So that's my bigger kick that I get out of being in this field of science. A couple of years ago, I made a transition and I moved to, within my same company, I made a lateral move to technical operations. We are two teams. We encompass both design transfer as well as on-market support, meaning under design transfer, we get product designs from R&D, and as design transfer or tech transfer, used in multiple ways. But we take the design from R&D and we put them into manufacturing so that we can actually make a product out of it, and we validate it and make sure it goes into the hands of our customers. So this is what I do under technical operations. I also take part actively in troubleshooting in any kind of on-market issues, meaning any of our products that are already on market used by our customers, we get a recall, we get, hey, I'm seeing something, seems to be off in this. Can you guys understand what's going on? So I'm expected to act as an SME. So this is how my journey has been so far. I thoroughly enjoy what I do. And if you guys ask me, what's the biggest difference that I saw based on being in academia for close to 8 to 10 years, as well as being in industry for close to 5 years now? We all know that academia has it's research focused, meaning you do because you want to understand why a cell signaling mechanism, is working this way, or why, a cell to cell interaction is, or why, for example, the one that I did was understanding how these microbes in soil have evolved, acquisition mechanisms of metals. And my research was focused towards that area. But when it comes to industry, the major difference that I've seen is that it's applied research, meaning you take the publications, that authors have put through in years of saying, hey, this is how a cell mechanism works. Hey, this is how, immune mechanisms work. You take that data, research that was published, and you put it into a product or in a way that can actually help healthcare. That's exactly what industry does. So it's not very different. It's just that the layout and the structure is different between academia and industry. In being in academic institutions, what I've observed is that it's a lot of independent work, meaning when I was working on my thesis, I'm the sole author or the ownership of my project. I had collaborators, but not at the rate at which I collaborate for my current job, meaning in the environment that I'm in right now, I reach out to maybe 5 to 10 other teams in order to put one product out, meaning it's not my job alone. It's a combination of reaching out to marketing, reaching out to clinical, reaching out to maybe R&D, manufacturing, regulatory, quality. So it's just a humongous team effort in order to put one product out, which is very highly collaborative approach versus the more independent nature of work that I used to do being in, research institutions. And we all know how grants and fellowships work. Several of you guys have already been probably in this, setup. In industry, it's usually company funded. And in academia, it seems to be a little of less structure for me. The whole reason being, again, we are doing research for the, joy of doing research. But in industry, majority of our work is structured, meaning you have your goals set. This is what is the product you want to release by third quarter of this year. You are putting all the effort in order to make sure this goes as per the plan. So goals are set very early in the year, and you work towards those goals because they're a part of your company goals, business goal, financial goal, whatever you name it. And the pace of work might be also a little bit different. What I've seen in industry is much faster. The expectations are high because again, we are dealing with products that can actually save, or in the point of care testing industry, you know that your product can actually help diagnose an infection or something that's detrimental to a patient and can help determine the treatment strategies in less than a day. So the pace of work can be very different depending on what kind of industry you're in, because there's several domains even under science industry right now. Moving on, some of the skills that I want to, put a snapshot about in grad school, we all, as a part of everybody who has been a part of this process of doing their PhD, being into postdoc, we all know that we have great scientific skills. We manage our own projects. We talk to our collaborators. We troubleshoot our experiments. We think through what's going on if something fails. We come up with ideas that can actually help, resolve the issue. We do the data analysis. We, to the changing conditions, we adapt. These are all the skill set that we already have being as a part of grad school. But how is it different being in industry? It's nothing but making sure that all these skills that you've acquired in grad school are transferable, meaning you can actually apply the same set of skills even in an industrial job and still ace it. So I think it depends on, if let's say I have not done too much project management in my transition phase, meaning when I was 2 years before my grad school, I did decide that, hey, I'm interested in moving to a, industry role, still doing science, still things that I, learned, because my basis is still molecular biology. That's what exactly I do here too, but in a different setup. But I spent a lot of my time along with doing my thesis, running around all the things that you do in your final couple of years of grad school. I was looking into networking events. I was looking into career workshops. I was talking to industrial professionals to understand what they do, how they do, and how their transition has been. So my effort and time during the last 2 years, a portion of that also went into understanding, in order to land an industry job, what are the skills that I need? What are the skills that I already have? And what are the skills I need to, improve upon in order to make that transition or make that move? So this is my, snapshot of what I see it as. And in my current role, which is technical operations, as I said, I do tech transfer where we get assay or a product from R&D. we deploy that assay to manufacturing, meaning we make sure that the design is manufacturable, scalable, reproducible, reliable, meaning I test a zillion times to make sure this product at any given day, time, and point, it's performing to its optimal performance. You do 1,000 tests, it should perform the same. If it's not, then there's a problem. There's a design issue, there is some other issue, we root cause, we troubleshoot and understand what's going on. So typically my day-to-day activities involve in getting the assay design from R&D, making sure it's going to manufacturing, making sure all the check boxes match, making sure we are able to manufacture this reliably every single time, and then prepare for the launch activities. So this is my day-to-day activities that I usually do. It's a very superficial, high-level screenshot that I have here. And if you guys ask me, how do you prepare yourself, or what kind of things you would do in order to make a switch to industry? Not everything that I talk here might apply to everybody who's in this, webinar. I've met several professionals during my time in UT Dallas, where people from engineering who were doing PhDs in bioengineering, computer engineering, electronics, and so on, their program curriculum did give them an option to do internships, meaning they can go work in actual companies for a 6-month period, for a 1-year period, to use the skill set that they have, learned as a part of their research and make some kind of actual application of it. I know that this is not something that's applied for a lot of people who come from science background. For example, myself, my university curriculum didn't have any scope for doing an internship. And that's downside of being in science, not having the opportunity to actually work for companies where you get to do a 6-month internship while you're still in the program. I know you can do it post graduation, but during the graduation period that you're there for 4 to 6 years, I think internships do add a lot of value on your resume. In addition to that, I would also shadow. I would do, if there is an option for you to do some contract roles, a 3-month summer internship, I would definitely take it up, depending on, again, what your program curriculum, gives you. The second most important factor that helped me was to tailor your resume to what the industry needs or what the job needs. Because typically when I made my academic resume, it was 4 or 5 pages long, because I'm listing down every single conference that I attended, every single poster presentation that I made, every single seminar that I spoke at. That is not all of that is not about what an industry job looks for. Usually they want to know what kind of impact all of that resulted in. They want to know what kind of action it resulted in. That's so in order to understand how to tailor your resume, there are several resume critic services right now. There have been multiple ones that are there in the market where you can give your resume and it can go from 5 pages to 2 pages or even 1 page. They can help you make your resume very impactful, so that all you're trying to say is, hey, these are the skill set that I have. This is a skill set that is exactly transferable to a role that I'm looking for in your company. And that's all is what you need in there. And in addition to that, one of the things that really helped me was I use LinkedIn a lot. I reached out to several professionals in my field who were not doing exactly the same molecular biology science that I was doing. But I did ask for a lot of informational interviews, meaning I would reach out to people saying, hey, I'm so-and-so, I'm a year away from my graduation. I would like to move to an industry role, and I see that you're a senior scientist or you're a senior manager at so-and-so company. Can I have a 15 to 20 minutes pep talk with you to understand what you do, how you made this transition, what kind of preparation you did in order to move to this kind of role? I think asking right questions in a platform like LinkedIn can actually be very, very useful. And in the process of doing this, I've met people from nutraceuticals, people from consumer goods, because the amount of companies and industry we have under science is too much. We have several domains. There are consumer goods, there are IVDs, like the diagnostics that I do. There are nutraceuticals, there's pharma, there's clinical. So the domains that you have under science industry, it's immense. And you can, being a molecular biology code, person, I can go even to a consumer goods company and still make an impact and still help, do what I do and still enjoy doing it. But if I don't know what it entails or what, a day-to-day life of a scientist from, let's say, Colgate does, I wouldn't know if that's the right fit for me or not. And that only can happen if you actually go reach out to people, go to these networking events, go to, career, workshops, where people actually talk about their experiences, how their transition was, what kind of tips, they have. I think networking is a very, very important tool in this age in science. You will land into opportunities where one can lead to another, and you might be able to potentially talking to an HR or an actual hiring manager, and you never know if that can actually lead to a solid offer. So I would say networking is a great tool to have. LinkedIn is very useful in that sense. Reach out to people, ask. I don't say that every single time you reach out to someone, they might respond. You do 20 emails, maybe one person respond, but it still is an experience that you can take something out of. And if you ask me what typically an industry looks for in the current role that I'm in, they want to make sure that do I have a team-oriented mindset, meaning in academia, you have always worked in, you probably do collaborate, which I do too. I've had collaborators from other outside of my university as well, but it still is much less in the scale when you compare to what kind of teams you interact with on a day-to-day basis being an industry. So an industrial HR or a hiring manager is typically looking for, hey, are you a team player or not? Do you like working as a group of team, with a group of people? And are you okay to interact with another group of people in order to push your project forward, in order to push your goal forward? And two, are you willing to learn and to take ownership? Again, I'm a lead of some of the projects, meaning I drive the activities under my umbrella on a day-to-day basis. But in order for my product to launch, I'm reliant on R&D, I'm reliant on marketing, I'm reliant on, manufacturing. So it's a heavily collaborative environment. If that is something that you enjoy doing, that's something that you like doing, industries can be a great fit for you. And another thing is accountability, meaning and time management, both. In industry, what I've observed is that a lot of projects can change timelines and deadlines like in a go. What is today, your goal can change like in a month from now, because if that's what your business demands and that's what your financial goal demands, one project can be shelved, another project can re-begin, or it can go vice versa. It happens all the time. So if you're ready for that kind of rapid shifts in the environment, then again, this is a great place, because I've seen projects that I've worked for close to 2 years getting deprioritized, and something else that I was not even a part of become a higher priority, because that's what is the market demanding right now. We change that, and that becomes a part of our financial or business goal. So if you're comfortable with that kind of fast-paced environment, rapidly shifting priorities, then it's a wonderful place to be. It's very rewarding. People value your time, respect your time, your opinion, and the science that you bring to the table. So what I've seen, at least from my experience, is that the timelines and milestones are very structured in industry. As I told, a lot of things are set very much advanced in time, meaning this is a part of your goal, releasing this project is a part of your financial goal. Then those goals are something that you're actively working on. You are working on, your team is working on, and you, along with other team members, are also working on in order to get this product out. And you usually have a lot of feedback as to how your performance has been. There is always, people appreciate you for the kind of skills that you bring, as well as there is always room for improvement, meaning they give you feedback as to, hey, these are the areas that you think, you can improve on, and they help you provide the tools and resources in order to improve that. And in addition to that, there is always options of clear career pathways, meaning there are promotions, there are lateral moves, leadership roles that you can take up to. My best example was I was in R&D, and 3 years later, I realized that I like what I do, but I think I want to do more. And then I made a switch to technical operations within my own company, and I really enjoy what I do now. Because now I have a knowledge of both how the assay design works, and now I know how also to put that assay design or a product out and launch it as well. So it's like knowing the full cycle of how diagnostics work. And final tips and resources for me, I would say leverage the organization's local chapters that you have in the state that you live. For example, ASM, I was part of ASM in the past. I've been part of AAAS in the past. I use LinkedIn a lot. I also look for any professional groups that, share their career paths, their career journeys, their transition stories, and any kind of tools and tips that, they can share can be a valuable tool for you. And in addition to that, I will also, having a mindset which, where you're actively interested in learning. For example, doing any kind of courses. There are several free courses that you get on Coursera where you don't have to be a pro on all of them, but let's say in addition to what I do, you know what, I want to learn Tableau, or, I want to learn R, or any of the statistical tools that are used, in high-end industry, positions. You can at least do basic research and understand what it is, try to get a course on it, spend some time on it, understand if you really like it, and then eventually you can make a career switch into that kind of a field. And certifications, again, is the same thing. I have done a bunch of certifications towards scientific writing because at the time of transition, I didn't know that I'll land a job in R&D. I was open to scientific writing. I was open to industrial jobs in several domains. So I would say don't box yourself. Be open to kind of opportunities that can, land to you. Have that kind of open learning mindset. See if you have any courses, certifications that can help propel your career forward, and embrace a growth mindset. That's because what you have already with a PhD and a postdoc, it's amazing. You are already there with all the skill set that you have. It's just that one transition that has to happen is the only thing that's stopping you. And in order to move forward, I would say apply a lot of jobs. It is my story. Going back like 6 or 7 years ago, I dedicated at least 4 to 5 hours on a weekly basis during the last couple of years of my graduation in order to understand what industry professionals are doing, what kind of jobs they do, how their day-to-day activities look like, are there any professional network groups around. Keep an Excel tab for yourself. Go to events, go to networking, places, make contacts, have a brief pitch ready for yourself, meaning there's an elevator pitch that you can have saying, hey, this is me, this is what I do, this is what I'm interested in. And just make a conversation with industry professionals. There are so many career fairs that happen within your university, within the state that you're living in. So attend those, make some networking, get some new contacts, and that can actually result. You can always, say that, hey, I saw, we met here and here. I see that there's a position open in your company. Is this something that you can, let me know more about as to what this role is or what kind of, expectations this job is? And if that conversation really ends well, they might be happy to refer you because they've known you for like 3 or 4 interactions now. I've had several people land interviews like that too. So I think as long as you have that kind of open mindset where you're interested in learning, making connections, meeting people, transitioning to industry is not that hard at all. So if you guys need more information, you want to know how information interviews work or how to send cold emails to potential recruiters, contacts on LinkedIn, let me know, reach out to me. I've spent a few years of my time in the early stage career of mine doing this. I do it now too. If I'm looking for a job, I do reach out to people on LinkedIn again saying that this is my experience, this is what I do. I see that you're in this role in the company. Can we talk about what you do? So these are the kind of you have to be, more proactive in these kind of approaches in order to help you actually understand what the industry is doing and what kind of jobs you may like, because there are several openings, as Lauren was talking about. If you just out of grad school, you have 10 or 15 profiles that you can look into. But if you want to know what you really enjoy doing, you might as well talk to professionals in that area that can help give you a, idea as to what their job entails and if you like it or not. So if you have any questions, I'm open for any Q&A. And if you want to reach out to any information, my LinkedIn name is there. Feel free to contact me.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Naimisha. We're going to jump right over to Irina Shalova.
All right, I just want to, hi everyone. Am I sharing correctly? Let me see.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
that was good.
Let me see. Go here. All right. Hi everyone, and thank you for this opportunity to share about my career path. And as the two speakers before me told, just contact us and contact other people about any questions even after this seminar, because that's knowledge is everything. So I just want to say a little bit about where I'm coming from, because it also adds to the complexity of going through the career, being in microbiology in the US. So I come from the north of Russia. It's above the Arctic Circle, very beautiful area, but also a lot of manufacturing happening, which affected the ecology. And I think that impacted what I'm looking for in my career later on. I did my master's and my bachelor's in St. Petersburg, a beautiful city, and it was an Institute of Technology in St. Petersburg, where Mendeleev did his work as well. So it's very old university. And it was so old that you had to wear gloves when you were in, like the winter gloves in the lab. I was not prepared well. So then I moved to United States and I did my PhD in Ohio, Bowling Green State University, and that was on and in microbiology. It was a microbial ecology, looking at the Great Lakes and cyanobacteria in Great Lakes, how they can use alternative phosphorus sources, because the Great Lakes, most of them have very low phosphorus source. And moving to United States was an interesting path. I got a good scholarship at the university. This university had a good assistance for international students. I had a very good support, and was very lucky to get in there. Then one of my, I think it was my first conference where I met my postdoc advisor, a future postdoc advisor, and we interacted. It seems like the research that I did was in line what they were doing, and they had funding when I was ready to go for a postdoc position. And I applied and they accepted me. So I moved to UC Santa Cruz in California for my postdoc, and I stayed there for 7 years. So I did postdoc, I stayed as a research scientist, and quite a long time. But what it gave me, so after that, I went to industry and was a startup. So what it gave me being as a postdoc and a research scientist, it gave me a big opportunity for leading the projects that are cross-institutional. I was a co-chief scientist on one of the oceanographic research cruises. I led some other big experiments, and trying to organize people together, trying to write paper together, writing grants. So all of that translated to what I then used in my, especially in the small biotech company. So after the postdoc and research scientist, there was time for me to apply for new positions. And I looked in LinkedIn. So I was open to try industry. I didn't know what to expect, but I wanted to understand how does industry work, that everything works much faster, people work as a team much more efficiently. I wanted to understand how that is it done, and what skills, maybe I want to go back to academia eventually. So what skills can I learn in industry and bring it back to academic lab? So that was my mindset. There was a position on LinkedIn that was just perfect for my skills and what I was looking for. It was in San Francisco. It was a small startup, Second Genome. When I joined them, there was 30 people. It grew to 70. And then after 6 years, it disappeared. And that happens with startups. It's pretty common. But I can also, if someone is interested, how that experience is when you go through a company, dissolving the company, what happens and how fast it happens. It can be quite traumatic as a first-time experience for some people. But everyone survived. Everyone is doing well afterwards. So there was this LinkedIn advertisement, and I contacted people that co-founded this company, because I noticed that one of the co-founders is actually a person that I know from papers that I've read when I was doing my postdoc research. And I was like, hey, I know this person from papers. I really admire their research. What they're doing for these companies looks very interesting, and I would like to join. So I contacted the person on LinkedIn. They replied. We started conversation, and within 2 weeks, they gave me an offer and helped me to make a visa for transitioning from H-1B, from university, from academia, to a specific visa. I think it was O1 visa in the industry. So within 2 months, I had a visa, and I started my job there. So that was very lucky for me. I didn't even apply for so many positions, but the communication, this direct communication through LinkedIn or somehow if you can connect, I think was important in here. They were looking specifically for a microbiologist from like environmental microbiologist, because they were there was a project on using metagenomics and machine learning for agricultural solutions, and other project was for human health. And so I was fitting very well with all the metagenomic, metatranscriptomic work that I've did before. And we just started moving into machine learning of how to model genetic data to find specific proteins of interest. So this is the startup position. This is where you grow very fast, depending on how you perform. I started as a senior scientist because I already had a good experience as a postdoc and research scientist. So I started as a senior scientist one, then I was senior scientist two, and then I was a director of the Department of Microbiology, which is in a small company. It's a small department, right? But it was still within 5 years I got to this position. That does not happen in a big company as well, that fast. So when you move after second genome collapsed, I had a good interaction with the team from Bayer Crop Science because we had collaboration with them in second genome. And so when there was a time for me, like, okay, I need to find a different position and I want to continue being in the agricultural space, not in the human health. So I contacted the team at Bayer, and they had a position that they couldn't fill for a couple months. And so I applied for that position, and I got an offer, but I also applied for a couple more positions at different places, and I also got offers at there. And I'll talk a little bit more what helps to get the offer from an industry, what get them to notice you more, just in a few more slides from here. So, so going from this startup to a big company where there are more than 10,000 people, and it's multi-divisional, right? There is crop science, there is pharma, consumer health. So I'm in the crop science, and I'll talk a little more what my day work is here. So a little bit on the science story and what connects my work in academia and also in the industry. I find that they both have the foundation in microbial ecology and evolutionary principles and tools. So understanding and thinking about microbial interactions is important. Let me see if I can have, I don't have a pointer. Okay, I'm looking at the middle. So this is what connects these both areas, thinking about microbial interactions, microbial diversity and adaptation, biogeochemical cycles that microbes perform. I've done a lot of field trips in both areas, in academia and in industry. In academia, it was going to the ocean and lakes. In industry, I was going to different preserves and farms and wastewater treatment sites. And metagenomics, bioinformatics, machine learning, this is huge. It's needed right now everywhere, especially if you are getting better in data analysis. That's very important. So in my, this is just example on the left from one of the 4-week research cruises in the Pacific where I was a co-chief scientist. We had 2 hurricanes chasing us and had to escape and not sample some of the sites. But here we went from San Diego to Hawaii. And it was an amazing experience where you are on the boat with 20 people, 20 scientists. And so how do you do work together? How do you interact, get the samples? It was a great experience. I would do that again. And then on the right side, you see this is more what I've done in both the startup and also in the big company, looking at how microbes can help protect crops from pests, but also provide resistance to herbicides or to diseases. And where can we find those microbes? How do we find those genes that actually protect the crop from pests, like those toxins for insects? So that's what I've been thinking for many years now and working on finding those microbes. So it's a lot of discovery work for me. Some of the highlights from, and I'll go very quickly here. So there are some of the research papers that came out from work were important to me, but was from the startup. So we had this collaboration in second genome with Bayer. And by the end of this collaboration, which I was leading from the second genome side, Bayer exercised option or basically paid us money. And it was a big output from this, which also helped me to put a very strong CV later on a resume. some more of the papers, but this is more collaborations. Again, collaborations are very important. You want to emphasize it in your interviews, in your resume. And one of the collaboration, which was during my postdoc career, I'll just point you to this source. It was very exciting for me and honor. Felt honored to be a small part of this story of discovering nitrogen fixing organelle. So the postdoc lab where I was is Jonathan Zer, who worked for more than 20 years on this nitrogen fixing organism that turned out to be an organelle and not a separate organism. So that's a whole story. You can listen to a podcast on Nature and Science podcast, and it's pretty cool story to just understand it. So I got to play a little part in this, and now I can brag about this, that I know what was happening. So anyway, so my work at Bayer, what I'm doing here is I'm looking basically for our team is called gene sourcing, microbial gene sourcing for crop protection. So we're looking for the microbial communities and microbes in the environment that then we can, whether we isolate them or we enrich for specific taxa that we're interested in. Lots of genomes, metagenomes analysis, lots of bioinformatics, machine learning, and then we try to find those traits or genes, these proteins that can be used to kill an insect, the pest, or to deactivate herbicide, or to clean some active ingredients in the wastewater in the manufacturing, or to in bioremediation. So we're looking for this direct application of the microbial genomics. And my areas of expertise that kind of grew stronger and stronger even with the industry work was microbial ecology, extensive field work. How do you collect? How do you preserve? How do you work further with the samples? Function-driven discovery, molecular biology, metagenomics, metatranscriptomics, bioinformatics. But understanding the principles of microbial ecology and evolution, so you know where you are looking for these specific traits. And then professional skills that develop, these are your soft skills that started to develop for me during postdoc, especially, and research scientists, and then in a small biotech, especially where you wear multiple hats. So leadership, project and people management. In a small biotech, I got to work, I got to lead a team of 20 people, which was pretty stressful, but it taught me a lot on how to communicate. And I will mention as one of the feedback on what to take away from my talk here. So managing external collaborations, grant writing is a big skill because you will continue writing, you will continue propose your ideas even in industry and getting funding for it to support. Mentoring is very important. So my typical day or week right now at Bayer, and this is typical for the last 6 months because Bayer is a big organization and it just went through a big reorganization, restructuring. And because of that, we have a lot of people like me have 40 to 50% in meetings. Now, from these meetings, large meetings that more than 10 people, sometimes 100, is 30%, and then small meetings about 70%. So the small meetings are very impactful. This is where you solve problems, you decide what you're going to do, how you're going to do it. These are important, and this will continue to happen, and I'm happy about this. These large meetings sometimes not as important, but we are figuring out how to work right now with the new structure. So this is why 50%, that's not common for before that restructuring. And I would like that to be much smaller. I would like that to be 30% for the meetings, and that's what I'm moving forward. Lab work, I'm still doing lab work. I'm working, but most of the time when I'm in the lab, I'm working with 1 or 2 other people that are on my team. We are doing different processes with microbes, whether it's isolation or encapsulation and doing single cell analysis. So we're doing a lot of fun work in here because we're in a discovery. We try different technologies. We are trying to find something that is very difficult to find. And then 20-30% is computer work, and that's where reports come in, data analysis, presentations, and new ideas. And I want to emphasize that in my role, especially, coming up with new ideas is very important. It's emphasized. and we got support and funding for this. So some of my favorite parts of my work currently is to do a focused work with the team on a specific challenge. So that's where these small team meetings are happening, and we have a problem that we need to solve, and we have specific goals and come up with some creative solutions. It's pretty fun. Working with interns, we have a program for 6 months internship for PhD students in their last year, and it's a paid internship, and it's pretty good. So stay informed, contact, and just look out for Bayer internship programs. They are pretty good. All the interns are really happy what they learn. You get exposed to different experts and programs, and see a lot of new things happening. Another one is that, so Bayer specifically as a big company, they promote new ideas and technologies. So you can actually write a proposal. It's a proposal. It's not as long as you write for NSF or NIH, but it's a proposal, and you can get internal funding for some novel ideas, which what we got last year. So we are now looking at how to harness metabolic capabilities from microbes in industrial wastewater treatment sites. And so we have these group meetings, we go out, we have some activities. So that's possible to do here, and it's possible to publish papers later. And finally, what are my it's kind of take-home messages from my side in terms of science. Microbes kind of led my way so far, somehow, coming from far north in Russia and being now in St. Louis at Bayer. And so for me to understand how microbes live and what they do in the environment, I need to be in that environment. And if I can look at the appropriate scale, that's even better. But that's how it helps me to understand what's happening with the microbes, what they do, and how we can find microbes we're interested in. And following my curiosity about microbial life just led me to witness amazing moments, like seeing this dolphin outside of the research cruise, meeting amazing people and places on Earth, going to all these conferences and meeting people from all different countries. From the professional side, so some of the advices that I would give, and I've heard already from previous speakers, asking for advice and critique. So reviewing your CV, find someone who can review your CV, is very important. That's what helped me to get a position like at Bayer, for example. I actually worked with someone for 3 months to make my CV more applicable for industry from academia. How to apply for a job in industry, how to write a paper, grant, share presentation. Ask for someone to review those papers with you and say, is it clear? Do they understand it? What they would do differently? So asking this advice, finding a mentor, maybe several, whether it's from academia or from industry, through your networks. That's also important. So I have someone that I have from Second Genome. I connected with one person, and she's been my mentor for now like 9 years. We connect maybe every 2 to 3 months, and what's happening, what are the next steps, and just became friends, but also still have this mentoring relationship. And communicate. Communication was a big for me, even though I thought I was communicating well before I joined the industry, but it was not enough. I was given a feedback. You want to communicate what you are going to do, what you are doing, and what you have done. It's never too much communication. Just overdo it. And if you don't speak about what you are doing, no one will know what you are doing. So that's an important one. But otherwise, whatever questions you have, let's talk about it. And thank you.